Good afternoon, everybody. We are Houston Ghost Tour. My name is Danny Thomas, and this is my wife, Lindy. Go ahead. Tell me
Hey
who you
guys. Well, first of all, we are Houston Ghost Tour. So we do ghost tours all around Houston, Old Town Spring, Tomball, and Tomball. We also do paranormal investigations. We have our good friend here, Mark. Mark is our paranormal investigator. He's the guy that goes out there with all the tools and equipment, and he will seek to find ghosts, make some contact with those spirits. We really love what we do. We're all very passionate about storytelling and ghosts and the paranormal. Danny and I are more like the theatrical people, so we go out there and we give you a show. So we are very energetic. We're lots of fun. We'll tell you the history, the hauntings, tell you all those ghost stories, get you really involved, let you see all those haunted places so that you can actually get up close and personal. And it really helps to know the history so that you can picture it in your mind how it used to be and really understand why we go there and what it is that makes it so fascinating throughout the years. But one of the best things that I think for us is actually getting that proof and actually being able to show that there are some supernatural things and paranormal things that happen that really can't be explained, and being able to go out there like we do all the time and actually get pictures and footage and camera footage, have this experience and actually be able to invite people out to do that with us really makes it worthwhile for us. So today we would love to open it up, let you guys come and ask us some questions. We'd love to know what you guys, just what you've been thinking all your life. Like, what are some things that you've wondered about spirits and ghosts? Because we've been through this. We've been in business 15 years. So we've been doing this a long time. So if you have questions, we are definitely the ones that you should ask about stuff. But firstly, I'd love to open it up to Mark to talk a little bit about some of the stuff he's been doing, because Mark is an avid ghost hunter. In fact, you go like almost every week, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so Mark, why don't you talk a little bit about like some of the scary stuff that you've done recently, because I know that you do your own podcast and YouTube.
Yes. So, I think this last couple weekends ago was probably one of the scariest places we've ever been. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Haunted Hill House. No? It's in Mineral Wells. There's a lot of demonic activity, so they have a resident demon that is currently there. And you'll hear a bunch of screaming, which we heard quite a bit of. There's a lot of EVPs, and you name it. I haven't really gone over quite all the evidence yet, but it's probably one of the top places that if anybody is interested, if you're to look into it. But I also would say that it's not for amateurs. We do offer some places that if you are interested in going to haunted locations with us, doing like a guided tour, then we do offer that if you're interested in going. There are places for more like beginners, and then we are working on more advanced places.
I also want to mention that Mark did bring his kit as well, so we wanted to talk about some of those paranormal tools that we have and kind of tell you a little bit about what those do. But yes, please.
So I want to ask this question, complete skeptic here, but what is the most haunted place in the Houston Metroplex area?
That's up to you, Mr. Houston.
Actually, I think that all of us should give each of our own answers, because I think all of us have had different experiences in different areas.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, if you're talking about famously haunted, I would say the Icon Hotel in Houston. That one is supposed to be one of the most haunted. Who was it that stayed there at the Icon? Was it JFK?
JFK.
So, of course, right before JFK was killed in Dallas, he stayed at the Icon Hotel. So, and is that the one that became an apartment complex?
Yes.
It is?
Yes.
Okay. So, it's said that the room that he stayed in still continues to show his spirit. And so occasionally people who stay in that room or have rented it out have said that they have seen him. They've also claimed to see a woman jumping out of the window. And people not only in the actual Icon Hotel itself, but also people driving by have said that they have seen a woman jumping from this same window that JFK stayed in. And so I think you can imagine driving down the road, you see a woman jumping out of a window, you're going to call the cops, right? Because you're like, oh my God, there's a lady killing herself. but then of course there's no one that lands on the ground. So I would say the Icon Hotel is a big one, but then also the La Carafe.
Yes. Yeah, the La Carafe would definitely be up there in the top 5.
I'm sorry, could you say it again, the what?
The
La
La Carafe. It is kind of right next to the Icon Hotel, but it's the
It's a bar, so it's the oldest bar in the Houston area. If you go there today, they have tried to keep it as close to the original as possible. So you're going to walk up to it and it's just going to take you back in time. Like you're in Houston from the day that it started. It's located on Main Street downtown. So that Main Street in downtown Houston is actually fantastic. If you just want to walk around just to see the old buildings, and they still have it set up very similar, but then of course you have the the Metroplex, the big bus that goes right through the middle of the street, which is kind of strange. But of course, that particular location is supposed to be haunted by the original owner, the man that built the place. They also, for many years, did seances inside on the top floor. And so, for a long time, paranormal people would travel very far just to go to the La Carafe and have that experience, see if they could make contact with that bar manager. But it's a top one, and I know it has been listed in some of those like USA Today, the top most haunted places. That definitely hits one of the top.
What would you say, Mark? Because you being the investigator, what's one of the top places that you've caught the most activity in?
So in Houston, I would say the most haunted place is actually the Artist Lofts. Now, unfortunately, this isn't a place that anybody can just go to. The reason it's so haunted is because it used to be the old insane asylum here in Houston. I was lucky enough to be able to gain access into it. It's very locked down. They don't want anybody that's not a resident in there. And I caught tons of EVPs. I wasn't really able to bring a bunch of equipment in there because they wanted to kind of keep it hush-hush. I was just basically let in by someone that lived there. They didn't even know me, but they were like, well, yeah, I want you in because we've had a lot of weird stuff in here. Yeah. And they still have the original flooring, and it's just very weird and very creepy. And some of the residents told me stories of seeing shadows and hearing voices. So unfortunately, is that you can't really go in there, and they don't want people like us in there at all because they don't want that really out there.
Yeah, because I think now it's mostly all artists.
Yeah, that's it.
Specifically for artists to rent out a apartment room, and so they keep it pretty quiet. It's very exclusive now. So
same place was the very first morgue and crematorium in the city.
Oh yeah.
So
yes, it was the first morgue and crematorium. So a lot of people said whenever it was in transition, going from the hospital to the lofts, that many people would go in there, break in, and they would go try to explore it, and everyone would have such a crazy experience that they would leave and quit paranormal investigating altogether. I know I've heard that many times. Doing this for as long as we have, we get a lot of people that are enthusiasts. We also get the skeptics. We get people that just want to come have fun. What's cool about what we do is we try to gear it towards everybody. So even if you are a skeptic, you can still come and enjoy the history, enjoy the stuff that we talk about, see the buildings, But what's cool about that Jefferson Loft, I think, is how many people actually got to go explore it before it became an artist loft, because they talked about, the old, being able to see some of the medical equipment still in there. You'd walk through the hallways, you would hear people crying. You would even see some of the straitjackets just lying on the ground covered in dirt. So it's a very spooky place to go. And so I just assume that the people who rent it out now probably have a lot of experiences.
I actually did try to get an apartment there one time.
Probably did.
Yeah, when they were looking, I guess they decided to look me up. I don't know, maybe they thought I was weird or something. And they noticed that I do investigations, and basically they just told me no.
They're like, we're not bringing your kind of person in here. Okay. All right. That was a great question. Anybody else have a question? You want to come up and ask us anything? Or even if you have a story that you want to share, like maybe you have something, you want to know more about, like if you've ever seen a spirit in your house, or you lived in a haunted place, you've ever had a strange experience and you just want to talk to us about it. Because that's something that we get a lot out there on the tour. A lot of times we have people come out, they tell us all about something that they have seen in their life and kind of want to know more about it. you know, if you don't have a specific question, we do know like all the different types of ghosts that are out there. Believe it or not, there's more than just one type of ghost. So there are several. On our tour specifically, we like to start it off by telling you the basic history, but then we tell you what you're looking for while you're trying to make contact or trying to have a paranormal experience. So there's 3 different types of ghost pictures that you're looking for. So one is going to be an orb, and that is going to be a solid ball. It usually is some sort of color, like white, blue, purple. Color is supposed to be attributed to whatever emotion they had when they died. So if you die very angry, you may come back as an orb in photos that's bright red because you're emitting that anger. Now the way that you can tell if it is a paranormal happening and not just a speck of dirt or dust or rain or something like that is it's going to be very solid and it's going to have a vibrating ring around it. So it's going to look very different than a speck of dirt or dust. Then you're also looking for a vortex. It's going to be a streak of white light or even smoke sometimes going through the camera when everything is still in focus and no one around you is smoking and it's not humid. You'll suddenly have a bunch of smoke. That's something paranormal. Keep an eye out. But one of the best things I think that we have out there is going to be the Holy Grail, which is a full apparition. So that is a full face or a full body of a person that is indeed not there. Now, how do you know for sure that it's actually not just a person or a reflection of somebody? The way that I always tell you is take a couple pictures in a row. So a lot of phones have like snap feature, right? You can turn it on, it'll take several pictures in a row. It's a really good feature to use if you're trying to catch a spirit. So if you take 2 or 3 pictures in a row, you're going to see that there are several of them with nothing in it, but then right there at the last picture, you may have that face or that full body looking right back at you. And if you know no one else is with you, then of course that chill goes up your spine and you know that there's somebody there that really shouldn't be. That's a lot of fun.
You know what? I would like to ask a question. Mark, what is your first paranormal experience? And usually your first paranormal experience really gets you into, you know, what we do because it scares us just enough to want to know everything about it. And then after a while, it just doesn't scare you anymore. You're just obsessed, and you just want to know more.
Are you calling Mark obsessed?
No,
I might
I'm
be.
saying that we all are.
A little bit.
I can't
I'm
be
definitely
in
obsessed.
business 15 years and not be obsessed with it.
That's true.
Okay, so my first experience, I've always had an obsession with weird objects for whatever reason.
See, he is obsessed.
And I remember seeing these little porcelain clown dolls. And my mom didn't want me to have it, but I begged her, I gotta have this thing. I don't know why, but it just felt like I had to have this thing. And after I think about a week or so of having it, and the time frame was a little bit off as far as how long I had it. I was probably maybe 10 years old, something like that. And I had it sitting up on my windowsill right next to my bed. And late at night, I heard what sounded like kind of a ruffling or something on the blinds. This is back when they had the old like metal style blinds. And I look up and I just see this little doll just start shaking. And it just absolutely freaked me out. And I get up and I look, I turn the light on, I'm looking all around, like maybe it was just something was pushing it, something was moving, I don't know what was happening. And I could never figure it out, and I told my mom about it, and then she immediately got rid of that thing. I've never seen it ever since.
I love clowns.
Yeah, so I was like, well, I guess I know what I'm going to be doing for the next 20, 30 years is trying to find out what that was about.
I'm a clown. That's not funny.
Actually,
It was you, wasn't it?
that's one funny thing to say is that Danny is actually a trained clown. He went to clown college. So
Yeah.
he's a real clown. He's not kidding.
Yeah. So you found me, ta-da.
It was just fate.
Some of the most popular questions we get asked is like, what's the scariest thing you've ever seen? Honestly, I would say Mark's probably the best one to talk to about that. Only because, you know, we're tour guides. We own the business. We're the theatrical ones. We're the ones that give you the entertainment, right? So we're out there to facilitate y'all. We want you to have an experience. The whole point is for you to come out and you to see a ghost, you to have that feeling, you to have your hair pulled or feel something tug at you or whatever it is. So we're not focused so much when we're out there giving the tour on having a scary moment. But that doesn't mean that when we're out there we don't have things. We just aren't like looking for it, you know. But throughout my years of doing this, there's been plenty of times where it's been scary. I've actually felt like somebody was hugging me from behind when I was standing up against a house, so there shouldn't have been anything behind me. So that scared me pretty bad. And I am also a skeptic. So I might have done this for 15 years, but I'm a Virgo, and we're just naturally very skeptic of everything. So, you know, even if you see it standing right in front of your face, like God could literally come down and be like, hey, I'm God, and I'd be like, are you really though? So, you know, for me, even if I see ghosts or I have experiences, there are times where I'm still questioning it. So, but I like that, because I feel like when I do have an experience, it kind of makes me appreciate it a little bit more, because I'm like, okay, you know what, sometimes I'm wrong, and I'm okay with being wrong, which is hard for me to do. But, you know, I think one of the scariest things was having my name whispered in my ear. For many years, I went by a stage name. I just went by L. That was it, just L. And that's because my name is Lindy, and I get Wendy, Mindy, Cindy, Lindsay, everything but my actual name. So that kind of got on my nerves, and so I decided to go by just L, make it easier. And so during that time, when I would meet with giant groups to give them tours, you know, they did not know my real name. So it's not like somebody could just walk up and say, hey, Lindy, how are you doing? Because they know me as Elle, right? So I'm giving a tour, everything's going really well. I'm moving into one of our most paranormal spots. And what I mean by that is it's the one that's like the #1 biggest hotspot to have some sort of experience. So when you're in this location, this is the #1 place that our customers have some sort of happening, some sort of sighting, or they get a picture, or they get something that is touching them, whatever. So we're walking into this place, and I hear my name right in my ear. And I'm like, yeah, what's up? And it's just my tour group, and they're behind me, and far enough that there was no way nobody just walked up and whispered in my ear. So that gave me the chills pretty bad. That spooked me big time, because, I mean, that to me, that was unexplainable. There was no way. I was the only one in town at the time. In that particular area, there were no friends with me, none of my crew was there, so there was no way any of them knew me. So.
You know what scares me?
What?
People.
People are scarier than ghosts sometimes. Actually, that's very true.
And it's people's reactions to what could be out there. I've been doing this long enough that I kind of know and can kind of predict what's going to happen on certain nights. That's why, you know, it's good to be a tour guide like this, because if I'm a good facilitator of it, then I can direct people to certain areas that I know that they're more likely to catch some kind of evidence of some kind of phenomenon that's out there. Well, when that happens, well, because you don't know what you're ever going to catch, you go out there, and people that have never seen it or never experienced these things before, their reactions are usually really blown away, shock, awe,
Disbelief.
scream, scary, spooky, you name it. But then you get that one person that scares me, and that's the one that swears they just got possessed.
Oh, Lord.
And
Possession.
and
Wow, probably my least favorite thing.
yes, and it's not that it's we never believe that that's a real thing, that it's a possession, that they're going to jump inside you or anything like that.
Well, what you're saying is it's not
This is
a common thing that happens on the tour.
no.
No, it's not.
Hey, possession.
But we
are real,
respect that
does
people
happen.
believe that that's something that could happen. But we're
Yes.
not like out there trying to get people possessed.
No, but usually this is a person that is with other group of people. They're the showboat of them. They're out there trying to draw attention, because, hey, I would be able to know if you're truly possessed, and I would know if you're not, and you're just doing this number and doing the zombie walk, you know, because after a while you're going to get caught, and you're going to be like, oh, I tripped. No, zombie, keep going. You know, so, and I've had other ones out there on tour that aren't with our group that walk up to me, and they're doing the baby giraffe walk. walking up to me, screaming
Yeah,
in the
but what you
street.
need to make sure you tell them is she was on drugs.
I have never seen her
Heavily
since,
on
so I'm not sure.
Not ghosts.
And that's the thing, when you're dealing with paranormal, weird, crazy, and coincidence, hey, any of that could have happened that day, but that was my scariest. People.
Your scariest was people and not
People.
actually ghosts.
Yes.
What about you, Mark? What's the scariest thing you've ever experienced?
Have any of y'all heard of Yorktown Hospital? Anybody? All right, so in Yorktown Hospital, it's probably the most haunted hospital in Texas. And there's a four-way area in the basement. And it's known kind of more famously for a black shadow figure that walks around down there. And I decided to go down there by myself for some strange reason. And I was walking down the little hallway, and the only way I can describe this was a dark, just a big black figure. It looked human-like, and I actually thought it was one of the other team members walking at me at first, but it was coming very quickly. And it was almost like floating. It wasn't like it was walking. You could tell it wasn't walking. And it just came very quickly, all of a sudden it just shot right through me. So at that point, that was probably the scariest thing I had ever seen and witnessed. So at that point, I went back upstairs, out of the hospital and into my car for about an hour.
Yeah, I can't blame you for that. Another thing that I think really scares me is when people get those apparitions. Like, there have been some super scary faces and like just full body people. And when you kind of when you're on a tour, a lot of times you know everybody. You can see what they're wearing, you know what their hair looks like. So if you suddenly get a picture of a person that totally doesn't match anyone else, and you get this full picture of this person's face and everything, I mean, that can make me a little nauseous sometimes, because I'm like, wow, that's scary. And then, of course, we have some serious history on some of these tours as well. Just for example, Spring was a very corrupt town. And a lot of the people who founded the place were in the bootlegging operations. we're talking the actual, municipal part of it. So our judge, our constable, our sheriff, they were all in on the bootlegging. They were in on the brothel, the prostitution. So it was a corrupt town, and it was quoted in history that there were no gentlemen there at the time. So, just from that alone, the vibe there can get really heavy. So if you're out there, especially in spring, because that's where I tour, Danny does Houston mostly, but when I'm out there, sometimes just the vibe alone is enough to be pretty scary. And so the atmosphere is great for just listening to those spooky stories, going out there, enjoying the history, trying to see if you can make contact, just trying to see if you can get a cool picture. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, every place that we do has a very wholesome vibe during the day. And then at night, it completely changes into something.
Have any of you guys ever been to Old Town Spring? Yeah.
Have you been there at
Have you
night?
been there at night?
I've been there once.
Yeah.
So at night, it is so different.
See, and where we're
You're
doing,
some of the only people out there.
yeah, so it shuts down 6 o'clock every single night and becomes a ghost town. So that's why we come out. And that's also why I do Herman Park and downtown. That's the Houston Zoo, Miller Outdoor Theater, Rice University, Museum of Natural Science, all right there. Miller Outdoor, Herman Park is a beautiful place. I mean, they have weddings and quinceañeras and proms and graduations and all kinds of stuff, but at
During the day.
During the day.
Not at night.
Very different place, because if you were here for storytelling yesterday, you might, I kind of gave it away that Herman Park used to be one big cemetery, and still is, because they don't remove any bodies when they build over cemeteries here. And so anybody that was ever buried there is still there. And so at night, we get to walk around in an active cemetery. There's a lot of homeless out there. There's weird things that happen. There's things that go bump in the night. It's very dark. And so it does get, again, a little sinister. But during the day, you would never know at all.
That's what we pride ourselves on, is bringing out the shadows of these places, because you wouldn't even know walking around in the daytime how many secrets it holds and how much death has actually happened in these places. I mean, there's been deaths throughout Herman Park for, almost every year. Like, and some of them are very tragic. They're just people who were homeless and ended up dying, which is horrible. But you also have some murders. You also have some spooky stories about people who the cops chased into the park and killed there, suicide by cop, which is scary. But that's one of our biggest ghosts now. He's kind of trapped there at this point. You can see him sometimes sitting in the bench. And then as you're walking closer to the bench, there's nobody there at all. So that's really cool.
And the way that we bring it to you is not to tell you, what's real and what's not. Because everybody has different beliefs all over the map on what they think is real and what's not. There's been arguments and wars fought over this. We're not there to tell you either way. We're going to give you the information. We're going to give you the history, the haunted history, what other people have found there, and then let you decide for yourself. Again, what's real and what's not.
Yeah, exactly. It's more about the fun, the entertainment.
Exactly.
But also, let's hope you see a ghost, man. I mean, what's the point of going if you don't have some sort of cool experience, right? So we try really hard to facilitate that.
But it's not always
set it up to where
It's scary.
the environment is ready and ripe for at least some sort of experience. So, yeah.
I have a question, another question. Come on.
Okay.
Out of all your equipment, which is the best one to use?
Or maybe the most reliable one.
Yes. What do you get the most out of?
I'd say the most reliable and number one ghost hunting tool is just a digital recorder. With that, you really can't, either you get something or you don't. You'll either hear a voice or you won't. These other tools like spirit boxes and REM pods and all these other things, they're electronic devices, so you could hear things that maybe you're just imagining, or devices just go off on their own. Things like that can happen. I generally like to use the recorders or other evidence, such as like the recorders, if I get voices, to correlate anything happening, say if we get I don't know if anyone's seen the little cat balls that people have started using, and just little lights go off, and the REM pod, which picks up electromagnetic fields, things like that. So if you just have your digital recorder on and you catch a voice, then it's kind of hard to dispute that rather than disputing, say, little lights going on and off.
Yeah,
Digital recorder.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, anybody have questions? I'm going to open it up again. Yes?
I have 2 questions. Awesome. And I don't know if y'all can hear me or not.
Yeah, we
Talk
can.
louder. Where's your favorite place to go and do a tour at, and where is somewhere you want to go do it?
Who are you asking?
Everybody.
All of us. Okay, cool. Excellent. Thank you so much.
You go first.
Oh, of course I go first because I'm the princess. No, just kidding. Okay. Okay. So my favorite place to tour, for me to give a tour or to go on a tour?
To give it to
To
them.
give a tour. So, I mostly do spring. So I'm like exclusively Old Town Spring. So I have to say that. But being co-owner, I've been on all of them and I kind of know the scripts and stuff. But I do love giving Old Town Spring. I think it's a blast. I do both the paranormal investigations and the tour itself. I'm less the investigator than I am a guide. I just feel more comfortable being the tour guide. But I will say, like, my favorite story along the route is probably Whitehall. Whitehall is a Victorian home. It's a 2-story beautiful house. And it used to be the funeral home. So for a long time, it just had, dead bodies in every room. And so over the years, it's been a lot of different things. I won't ruin it because I'd love for you to come on the tour and actually get to see it. But it's haunted by a ghost bride. And so people have seen her a lot. I just think it's a really beautiful building. I love the history. I love how much it's been through over the years. I love that it was a hippie commune. I think that's hilarious. So it was a funeral home and then it became a hippie commune. So that cracks me up. But the whole town is fun. Everything there is really great. And honestly, very truthfully, I like it better at night than I do during the day. So, and a place that I would love to go and tour, to be a tour guide myself or to just go on a tour.
To just go like as yourself.
As myself, to give a tour. Probably Salem. So I grew up a little bit in the Boston area when I was a kid, and I have such good memories of the history, and I love history, of course, doing this, but I think the buildings are so beautiful, the nature is so beautiful up there, but of course Salem is just cool. And when you're into ghosts and paranormal, Salem is one of those places that's like on the bucket list to go. So I would absolutely love to go give tours in Salem.
I'm technically the senior vet up here now, which is strange to even say for me. Because when I started doing tours, I got into paranormal stuff when I was about 18, and in my early 20s, I was just studying, trying to figure out my life, didn't know what to do. I took a trip to New Orleans, and I was really getting into paranormal stuff, and so I took some of the ghost tours in New Orleans, and I fell in love with it. I was like, this is really great. I mean, I want to talk to you guys. How do you do this? Because they were theatrical. They were just like me. Hey, most of them were clowns. Most of them were just entertainers. Most of them were actors. Most of them were storytellers. They really weren't into paranormal things. So I was like, okay, I'm an entertainer. I can actually do this. So I went to work in New Orleans, which if you ever get to do ghost tours in New Orleans, definitely go. It is spooky. It is creepy. And you will get hammered.
Especially on Bourbon Street.
Yes. But I moved from there and came to Houston, and I'm a native Houstonian, and there was nothing like that here. So they said, take my business model, find you some places here, and maybe you could start up some money. And so I started researching a whole bunch of different places, trying to find out where I would like to go do tours at. And we found our 4 locations around the Houston area and just started to build them up. And it's taken 15 years to get to where we are now. But I've traveled. I did the ghost tour in Galveston, one in Kemah, 4 spots around here. We did Madisonville, a hotel in Madisonville. We did place in Palestine. There's Fredericksburg, Butler's Courtyard. I've done them all over the place. And outside the ones that I normally do all the time and know so well that I can just go into and just have fun with it, ones that are going to intrigue me by the people that are going to come, and also how I would be able to conduct my tour. As much as I love Houston, I did a tour in Butler's Courtyard. It's a little bit further south of Kemah, and it's one of the oldest towns in Texas. It was supposed to be the guy that built the seawall lived there. His house is there. It's over 100 years old. You really can't find the place, but there's a big bank vault that got robbed by Bonnie and Clyde. There's a rich history down there that everybody has forgotten about. But when I did it, I had a big reception to everybody having just different paranormal experiences all the time. Let's say that I have 20 people on tour, and maybe 1 or 2 will get a real, true experience. And then the rest of just audience watching everybody else freak out. Well, in a place like that, it was everyone had a different experience going on. And that's what made a really good tour for me. Where I would like to go and do a tour, Seattle. Because of the underground in Seattle, I would really love to go do that. So,
Yeah, my turn.
What you can do for your investigation.
All right, yeah. So I don't really do tours. I do guided investigations. So I guess it's kind of in my contract to say that my favorite place to do guided investigations is in spring. But if I had to say a close second, would probably be Lavaca County Jail. This is a new place that we started offering is doing these guided investigations. What I like about it, for one, it's a much longer tour. So our tours in spring are about 2 hours. When we go to the jail, it's about 4 to 6 hours. So you get a lot more time, there's a lot more interaction, and there's not as many, it's kind of, there's not as many rules as far as there is in spring. You can only do so much in spring, and plus there's a lot more wide variety of spirits in the jail. And so you can have anything from just very nice spirits who just want to have a little chat, up to very mean and dark entities. So if you want to experience something like that, that's also a good place to do that. As far as a place I would like to maybe give or see a tour is Zach Bagans' museum. I don't really have to tell you why. The other option I would say, as far as if I just wanted to go on a tour, which unfortunately I didn't get to do, would be in Gettysburg. Just because I like the history, and I think that would have been really neat to just join a tour.
I say that's really, like, intense. I've talked to people who have been there doing investigations, and just being there, and the experiences are just phenomenal. So it's definitely a top tier. You know, if you're looking to have an experience, I would say that's a big one. And also Savannah.
Yeah.
Savannah,
yeah.
Georgia, of course, New Orleans.
Florida Keys.
The Keys. Oh, Robert the Doll.
Robert the Doll.
Oh, yeah,
Florida
that's,
Keys.
yeah.
You guys heard of Robert the Doll before? So similar to Annabelle, if you've seen the Annabelle movie. I think that's where they got the inspiration. No.
No. Annabelle.
They're different. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you collect mysterious objects.
Yes, I have
don't
quite.
you?
Yep, I have quite a few dolls. I have some.
What do you got?
Weirdest one, I would say, is a little doll named Annette, and she actually came from an insane asylum. The girl that used to.
Explains a lot.
Yeah, I know. So the girl
Is that why
that
you're so weird?
that
Is that why you're so weird?
probably. I know. I'm just surrounded by this stuff all day.
You're surrounded by us.
Yeah, she was from an insane asylum, and the girl that owned her, they say accidentally, but I don't think it was an accident, accidentally burned down the asylum. And one of the nurses decided to save that doll. And so this doll is in very rough shape, and it was in the fire. And I was lucky enough to own it now.
What makes it so weird? Like, does it do anything strange?
We've caught it moving. Unfortunately, we've never seen it on camera move. She kind of gets a little bit shy on camera, but yeah, we'll put her in certain, kind of move her arms around, and then she'll be quite different. She'll move up and down, and we've also heard her talk. I actually got her in the mail, and I plan on doing a video of a unboxing, like you've probably seen on YouTube before. And I didn't end up doing that because I was sleeping, and I kept hearing crying coming from the box. And I was like, well, okay, at this point it's not my imagination. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna go ahead and take her out and just see if that stops. As soon as I took her out and put her up on my little desk, crying stopped, and it's been peaceful ever since.
Dolls, claustrophobic.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did.
That's crazy. All right, anybody
didn't
else
like
have
it.
any cool questions for us? That was a good one, thank you. Anyone else? Sparking any ideas out of you?
All right then. Well, we're close enough to time. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
But we do other things. We do like private parties. So if you have a birthday coming up, or you just want something fun to do that's different, you want to take all your friends and family. I mean, Christmas is coming up. We're open year-round every day. Usually Friday and Saturdays are our big nights where we have the bigger crowds and more things that are offered. But if you want to come out on a weekday, we are available. And of course, the paranormal investigations, Mark is really trying to find us a lot more of those where you can actually come out, go overnight.
Yeah, what, Mark?